Yo, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look back at the first and last lines of the Joestar allies. I'm also going to be highlighting some of my favorite lines of theirs, but not every single character is going to get one of these because this video is about to be like 12 hours long. There are way more friendly characters than you probably remember, and not all of them are even that important. But anyway, before we jump into the video, let me know what some of your favorite JoJo lines are down in the comments, and let's discuss there. Alright, let's get it. Starting off with Robert E.O. Speedwagon, the official sugar daddy of the Joestar family. First introduced when Jonathan goes to Ogre Street to find evidence that Dio poisoned his father, Speedwagon starts out as an unruly thug who tries to rob and kill JoJo alongside his gang. Hey Tattoo, do him in with your knife.
You do the honors, Tattoo! Right! Use that sieve of yours to slice him open! I want his guts for garters!
After Speedwagon gets the taste kicked out of his mouth by Jonathan, he quickly falls in love with him and becomes one of his most loyal friends, ensuring that the Joestar family is taken care of for generations. Speedwagon's last line happens during the funeral of his BFF's grandson, Joseph. When Joseph and Suzy Q surprise everyone while they're mourning their living friend, they all react to the sight of the ring on Suzy Q's finger, saying, "Your wife?
You got married?"
Kind of lame, considering how important his legacy is to supporting the Joestar family. I think he could have had a more significant line here, potentially related to his memories of Jonathan, or even Joseph, who he helped raise. Now for what I think his best line is. Speedwagon is basically the stand-in for the audience in part 1. Whenever something important happens, he announces it like we all didn't see it happening for ourselves. I personally love how much trash he talks about Dio. Mr. Joestar, I'll tell you this, I've lived in darkness ever since my birth and have met all kinds of villains, so I can tell a good person from bad just by his smell.
This fella reeks of brimstone and blood worse than anyone I've ever laid eyes on! He is pure evil, right down to his very bones! Is he a victim of circumstance, you're wondering? Not on your life! He's been evil since he drew his first breath!
Speedwagon comes from the slums and has all the street smarts to prove it. Up into his adulthood, Dio has been able to play everyone around him like a fiddle using his charisma and natural ability to lie his ass off. Speedwagon is the first person to see through this and call him out for everything. And the craziest part is, he doesn't even know Dio, but can tell exactly the type of person he is. What type of person are you? Are you the type that's been stressing over their relationships recently? Look, love can be a difficult thing to understand. It can make us act irrationally.
Por favor, Montoya, por favor. Por favor, Montoya!
Unusual. It can come with so many questions and uncertainties that just linger in the back of your mind all the time. Why am I spending so much time wondering when they'll text me back? How can I be sure that they're as invested in this relationship as me? There are more than enough things in our daily lives stressing us out constantly, so why let what's supposed to be the best part of the human experience, our relationships, whether they be romantic or not, be another source of stress? This video is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp can help you escape the seemingly endless loop of questioning yourself and stressing over your relationship concerns by connecting you with trained therapists who can help talk you through your problems and help you find some real answers. What I really appreciate about BetterHelp is when you're making your account, they give you a survey that goes in depth on the things most important to you. How important is faith in your life? What's your background? What are your goals? They take all of the answers that you give them and use them to match you with a qualified therapist that's right for you in as little as a couple days, while allowing you to easily switch therapists for no extra cost if the fit isn't right. It takes real strength to seek out help and start therapy. So if you find yourself having any of these concerns, click the link down in the description or go to betterhelp.com/thelostcrusader for 10% off your first month. Now back to the video. We're introduced to Will Zeppeli when Jonathan and Irina leave the burned Joestar estate. We see Zeppeli following behind them, but right after Jonathan notices him, Zeppeli dips off and appears in front of them eating a sandwich. He says,
"Ah, Signore Joestar. And the lass at your side is Signorina Pendleton."
Then he leaps up in the air solely off the strength of clenching his butt cheeks together and attacks Jonathan.
"You survived against the mask. Not many men can claim that."
Much later, during their battle with Tarkus, Zeppeli makes the ultimate sacrifice so that he can give Jonathan the strength and resolve he needs to win the fight, and later defeat Dio and destroy the stone mask. He learned during his Hamon training as a young man that he was prophesied to die in this moment, and knowing how important his death is, Zeppeli accepts his fate with open arms, saying, "When I was young, I was married, but I gave up my family for the stone mask. But I'm satisfied with my destiny because I have accepted everything. In the end, I passed everything to you, Jojo. You are my hope." I feel like I have a best friend and son all in one, and from now on, I will live on inside of you. This is also my favorite line of his, and in the anime it is a bit different and more drawn out.
Jojo, through you, I will live on forever. My son, Jojo.
When the young Poco Loco is introduced, he is brainwashed by Dio and made to act as a thief in order to successfully lure the Joestar group into a trap. I'm taking this, fools. He quickly ends up becoming an asset to the team because he knows they can help him save his sister, and after they initially win, he sees Jonathan and his new wife off as a friend of theirs.
Bon voyage! Have a wonderful trip!
The very first time we see Master Tonpetty is in the flashback where Zeppeli is talking about where he learned Hamon in his youth. Foreigner, I can see your future.
If you pursue the mysteries of Hamon as my pupil, your fate is sealed. The day will come when this will be the death of you.
Could just be me, but this seems like an insane thing to say to a guy you just met. But Zeppeli still wanted to learn regardless of what fate had in store for him. Just like Poco Loco, Tonpetty says his last line when he's saying goodbye to the newlyweds at the end of part 1. When Speedwagon is wondering if he missed seeing the couple's departure, Tonpetty says, "They're coming." Dyer shows up toward the end of part 1 to provide backup against Dio and his army after Zeppeli asks for help.
That is correct. The village is lost. The zombies are everywhere.
The first thing he does is test Jonathan by launching a surprise attack, and he goes on to try this exact same move against Dio, and let's just say it does not go well this time either. But he lives, at least long enough to strike Dio with one more attack and make life just a little bit easier for Jojo. A rose thorn infused with Ripple is painful, isn't it? We're not going to be talking about straights here because if this video does well enough, then I will be covering him in a future villains video. For now, on to part 2, starting with Caesar. Joseph goes to Rome to meet Caesar because his favorite Nazi, Stroheim, tells him to go seek out his help. When we first meet him, he's in the middle of a date that's going well, but he takes the time to throw some shots at Joseph, saying,
"This hotel used to be a place of class and refinement. Now they let just anyone in here."
This is pretty much the start of their rivalry turned friendship, which ultimately ends in tragedy. Caesar puts up a great fight against Wamu, but ultimately loses. Thinking about the legacy of his family, Caesar dies, sending the last of his Hamon to his friend. I can't let my life's flame
Just sputter out to darkness. This is the Zeppeli family spirit, handed down from the past to ensure the family's future. It's the human spirit! Jojo! This is the last of my Hamon! Take it from me!
This is a 10 out of 10 scene for me, and one of my favorite lines from Caesar comes right before this, moments before his death. I am not afraid to die here.
But I am a proud member of the Zeppeli family, so you see, it's in my blood. Something like this might mean absolutely nothing to a demented inhuman monster like you. My father didn't recognize me, but he sacrificed his life to save mine anyway. My grandfather gave his Hamon energy to save Jojo's grandfather right before he died. It's tradition. I have to do something.
There is so much at stake here, and just like his grandfather and father before him, death is nothing if it means protecting the future. Even though the first thing we learn about Stroheim is that he's a Nazi, our introduction to him is supposed to paint him as this sadistic, freaky person. When he's getting shaved by a woman he's keeping prisoner, she accidentally cuts him, and his reaction is to make her clean the cut with her tongue. Lick it.
You drew blood from me, no? Don't make me order you to lick my wound clean.
Stroheim might be a Nazi cyborg, but Araki makes it clear that this Nazi cyborg has a heart. He fights valiantly against cars alongside Joseph in the manga. His last line is the terror-filled scream he lets out when he sees what he thinks is Joseph's death.
No.
Jojo!
But in the anime, as the narrator explains what happens to the cast of Battle Tendency after the fight, we're shown the moments that lead up to his death in 1943 when he's fighting in Stalingrad. He dies a proud German soldier.
Our technology is the greatest!
Machina and Loggins are characters that exist. Moving on to part 3, and starting with Avdol, who we first meet when Joseph is trying to get Jotaro to come out of his cell. Mr. Joestar, I may have to get a little rough. Sometimes suffering is the only way to make a fool see reason.
I'm afraid this may get a little bit rough, but in a few minutes he'll be riddled with so much pain that he'll be begging you to let him out of here.
Avdol is such a sick character, man, so his death being so sudden stings a bit. What the hell is that? This is impossible. Iggy's nose and my flames aren't sensing anything, but it suddenly showed up. Polnareff, Iggy, watch out!
My god! What is that abomination? Impossible! Neither my flames nor Iggy could sense it! Where did it come from? Polnareff, Iggy, you have to get out of here now!
Avdol sacrifices himself to save Polnareff, who had become a friend over the course of their journey. But they started out as enemies. My favorite line from Avdol is toward the middle of their early fight. Polnareff is cocky and tells Avdol that he's going to end up killing himself with his own flames while trying to defeat him. Instead, it's Polnareff who ends up getting burned. Avdol says, "You challenge a fortune teller to a battle of prediction? Who do you think you are?"
Challenging a fortune teller in a battle of predictions is a bold move. Give it another decade and you would have been a viable opponent.
It may not be the end of their fight, but it's one of the coolest ways that you'll hear a character tell someone they're out of their league. I know he's being mind controlled here by Dio, but Kakyoin at the beginning of part 3 is a completely different character from the Kakyoin at the end. He attacks Jotaro with a voodoo doll-like painting ability that he uses to cut his leg. Of course, Jotaro saves himself, causing Kakyoin to think, how very fast. I see his stand has great power. It's no wonder the master wants him dead, but no matter. My stand shall do the job quite easily. Kakyoin joins the Crusaders to help save the love of his life, Jotaro's mom, and also to redeem himself for what he did while he was under Dio's control. When he finally confronts the vampire wizard, Kakyoin dies, barely realizing how he's been killed. Dio turns him into a donut, but he still spends his last moments piecing together what Dio's power is and sending a message for Joseph to figure out. My final emerald splash.
It's a message. I don't have the strength to give you another. Mr. Joestar, you have to decipher it. You have to let the others know.
Kakyoin is an amazing character, and he honestly has a handful of options for what could have easily been his best line. But my favorite is toward the end of his fight against J. Guile. Guile is starting to get under Polnareff's skin, and right as his French friend is about to lose his cool, Kakyoin cuts in saying, "When avenging someone, you don't say lame things like, 'You son of a bitch.' Instead, you say this, My name is Noriaki
Kakyoin. In order to avenge my dear friend Avdol, and so that the soul of my friend Polnareff's sister may rest in peace for all eternity, I will have you pay with your life."
In this scene, he not only shows that cocky confidence we expect heroes to have when facing evil, he makes sure his boy looks cool too as he delivers the finishing blow just moments later. And speaking of Polnareff, he's up next, and just like Kakyoin, he starts off as an enemy stand user being mind controlled by Dio. He poses as a tourist and approaches the group before revealing his true intentions. "Excuse me, sorry to be a bother. I'm a traveler from France. I can't read this Chinese menu. Could you help decipher it for me?" Polnareff is the only non-Joestar to survive the hunt for Dio, and he returns later in part 5 where he gets his ass kicked bad. His last line is the advice he gives Giorno at the end of Golden Wind, after he decides not to destroy the stand arrow. "Put the arrow into the turtle. That'll do, Giorno. That is the duty of the survivors. Now let's go to the Colosseum." Having been in Giorno's shoes as a survivor who lost friends fighting against the chaos the stand arrow causes, Polnareff understands all too well the guilt and sense of obligation that Giorno feels in this moment. And for his best line, we'll have to go back to the same scene as Kakyoin's when they're fighting J. Guile. "Your screams are like music to my ears, J. Guile. Now I will send you to hell, sobbing the entire way there.
But there's one thing I can't rely on the Guardians of Hell to do. And that's to turn your body into a pincushion! I'll leave the rest to the devil, rot in hell."
It always feels good to see a character get their well-deserved revenge. Finally, we have the last member of the Crusaders and the best anime dog of all time, Iggy. He technically never speaks, but he does have an internal dialogue during his fight against Pet Shop. This bird is a stand user just like me. It generated that block of ice and killed him. It kills everyone who gets close to this manor, and it'll come after me next. I'm next on its list. And after he smokes this dumb bird, he leads the team right to Dio's door, delivering his last line here.
Gates open as if they're inviting us in. This is totally different from the situation yesterday.
Iggy tries to convince himself that he doesn't care about anyone else, but my dog is a big fat fraud. He is a hero through and through, and every time he sees someone in harm's way, he leaps in to protect them even if it costs him his own life. The only reason he fights Pet Shop and almost dies doing it is to save a boy who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm done for. I've lost a lot of blood. I don't have the strength to swim to shore. I'm going to drown.
Why is this happening? I was supposed to live a trouble-free life. Damn it! I messed up.
Even though Iggy doesn't choose to be in Egypt, him letting the people around him die is just never an option. Alright, now we're kicking off my personal favorite part with Koichi, who narrates a good portion of Diamond is Unbreakable, and he starts by introducing us to the town of Morio. It's already been 3 months since the new year began. The year is famous for Nostradamus' great prophecy, and it's all over the news. But most people don't really care about that and went on with their lives, getting ready for the upcoming spring.
It happened in April 1999. It was my first day of high school, and I was about to make 2 very bizarre friends. I was about to become a high schooler and wondered what the others would be like. In case you were wondering, my name's Koichi Hirose, though I guess it's not that important.
After the events of part 4, we see Koichi in Golden Wind, and his last line is him narrating again. Listening to Giorno's story, I could see that he held virtue within his words. I could tell because I'd seen it before, because back in Morio, I'd seen something similar in the 3 men of the Joestar bloodline. Those 3, who always made it seem as if the virtue of justice was their life energy. And as Giorno looked at that poor old man who'd been victimized for his dream, there was that same virtue within him. Giorno had definitely inherited the will of the Joestar bloodline. Koichi has this same internal dialogue in the anime, but in it, he has one more line after. Hey,
I'm long overdue for some sightseeing.
I just hope that my boy was able to go see the Leaning Tower of Pisa without being shanked by somebody wearing a crop top and Gucci slippers. Seeing Koichi develop his confidence over the course of part 4 never gets old. He goes from being kind of a pushover to one of the MVPs when it comes to taking down Kira. My favorite line of his comes after he tracks down Kira and is nearly killed for it. Yeah, whatever. You're going to kill me. Good for you. But I found out your name. That makes you pretty careless. You might get away for now, but will you be able to live with the fact that some fucking brat got your name so easily? Let me say that again. Some fucking brat got your name.
You're such a colossal dumbass! I'll be waiting for you on the other side, you murder-happy son of a bitch!
And this is exactly why my son Koichi and Jotaro are best friends. Just like with half the characters in part 4, Okuyasu starts out as an enemy, and the first thing he does is be mean to Koichi, which, is not cool, man. You don't go sniffing around other people's house like that, kid. You just don't.
Try keeping your nose out of other people's business, little brat.
Okuyasu isn't in part 5 like Koichi, but he does make another appearance in Thus Spoke Kishibe Rohan, which takes place sometime between parts 5 and 4. His last line is, "Octopuses are quite intelligent creatures. I saw that on the Animal Channel. They can even use the suction cups on their tentacles to spin the caps off jars and grab the food inside. I'll spin my fork around to eat things too. Yum." His last line in the OVA is different. In this scene, he's just responding to Rohan's ghost story saying, "Nah, I don't mean that. Could it be that it's just some run-in between stand users and nothing to do with vengeful ghosts?" And his best line has to be what he says to Akira after he beats him and Red Hot Chili Peppers. "Don't think you can bullshit me twice. I'm Okuyasu Nijimura, bastard."
You figured out I was a user. How? It was easy. Tell me already! I was gonna beat the shit out of both of you and sort it out later. That deduction stuff is for the bird.
I love this line because it plays on the running joke of Okuyasu being a complete dum-dum. If his IQ was a little bit higher, part 4 would have been wrapped up so much sooner. Up next, we have the writer of this manga himself, Kishibe Rohan. Introduced in chapter 53 when Koichi goes to knock on his door, he says, "Who the hell are you? Are you trying to prank me?"
And who, pray tell, are you?
Why are you here? Some kind of prank?
I had a little bit of trouble deciding what I was going to use as Rohan's last line because after part 4 he has like 2 spin-offs where the timeline gets messy, and then he has an alternate version of himself in part 9. Ultimately, I decided to go with the last thing he says in Thus Spoke Rohan Kishibe when he's talking to his editor about her eating spaghetti in his office. Since when have I permitted food in my workroom? Look at this manuscript. Right here. Take a close look at these 2 dots. Notice how they're colored differently? They're orange, while the dots next to it on the page are black, correct? They're black. But these 2 dots are clearly orange. We're all in agreement about this, right? That means you let the grease from your tomato sauce drip everywhere. You're supposed to be my editor. Get the hell out.
Get out!
And his best line has to be, you said your aim is to surpass me, but since I'm a bit older, I'll let you in on a little secret. Beating one's opponent isn't all that difficult when you think about it.
What's really challenging is, and pay attention, the real challenge is truly outdoing oneself, which is what I'm going to do, using my own luck.
This has to be the most intense game of rock, paper, scissors to ever be played. We're first introduced to Reimi in Ghost Girl's alley, where she haunts, hoping to find someone to help her bring down Kira. Upon seeing Koichi and Rohan wandering through and getting lost, she offers to help them.
Excuse me, are you two lost? I would be happy to be your guide.
And after she basically sends Kira to hell, she goes to say goodbye to everyone who helped her stop him. Thank you, all of you, and goodbye.
Thank you all. That means the world. So long, my friends. Be well.
It takes 15 long years for Reimi to get justice, and when she finally does, she makes a show of it. Her best line is easily the conversation she has with Kira before he's dragged to his eternal damnation. We have spent 15 years waiting for you to come. Arnold.
Yoshikage Kira, your hour of reckoning has arrived.
What are they going to do? Reimi!
Dunno. Although, I doubt you'll be living in peace and tranquility.
You know, a lot of times I will use the word GOAT to describe a character because my frequent internet usage over the years has drastically decreased my vocabulary. But if there was ever a character who was actually deserving of this title, it has to be Hayato Kawajiri. In the anime, his first line is,
I get it, because it's 3 times faster the picture quality is.
In the manga, this is shown to just be mumbles that we can't hear. I have so much respect for Hayato because he's just a little kid with no powers who can't even see stands. But somehow he navigates his way through terrifying situations that most people would think were impossible, all to protect his mother and the town they live in. He has to resolve himself to help kill a man that has his father's face. And even though him and his father aren't close, they're still family. It's not until after he returns home after Kira's death that Hayato has time to process everything that he's been through.
It's okay, Mom. I'll wait with you. When Dad gets home, we'll all sit down and eat together. 'Cause that's what a family does, right?
My favorite line of his happens toward the end of the fight against Kira, when things finally start going his way after he's been tormented for so long. Luck's on your side? You're gonna get some opportunity?
Nothing you've got compares to these guys' righteous hearts! They're gonna make you pay! Can you feel it, Yoshikage Kira? The truth is staring you right in the face! You're nothing compared to them!
Ladies and gentlemen, Shigechi Yangu. Y'all did a good job. As they say, grains of sand make the desert. There's 5,000 yen here, alright?
Great work, everyone. These are some good pickings. Like they say, a yen saved is a yen earned. And counting all the money that we've saved, this makes 5,000 yen!
Shigechi has one of the more tragic deaths in the series. The only reason he becomes a target for Kira at all is because of a chance encounter and a big misunderstanding.
No, I'm gonna protect Mommy and Daddy.
Up next is Mikitaka, who is either the world's most committed liar or an actual alien. His first line is, ow.
Huh? Ow, that hurt. What?
Just like with Okuyasu and Koichi, Mikitaka makes an appearance in Thus Spoke Rohan. His last line is his response when Rohan asks if he's really an alien. Yes, I came from the Magellanic Clouds to live here, but my spaceship is still waiting 1.5 million kilometers away. Mikitaka is hilarious to me. My favorite line of his isn't something he says, it's a thought that he has when he sees Toyohiro's food at the radio tower. His vegetables are covered in shit. Yuya Fungami is a character that I wish was used more in part 4. I could completely understand people disliking him, but I think his personality makes him a great addition to the story. His first line is, "Let him be. How about instead, since I'm feeling better, you peel one of those rotten ass peaches over there." I think this interaction is just a little bit better in the anime.
Leave that loser alone.
Huh?
You don't look so hot, pal. I thought it had been a while since that first guy in the tunnel gave me his nutrients, but now I know what was holding up my meal.
In the manga, his last line is, "That's why I let you win," after purposefully letting Enigma turn him into paper to free Josuke so they can beat him. However, in the anime, Yuya, along with most of the side characters, has an extra line at the end of the last episode that isn't in the manga.
You think so? Would you say I'm a dazzling dish of devilish delights?
And my favorite line from Yuya is another one where he's being extremely vain. "I am just so gloriously handsome. Check out this face of mine."
At the very least, it's like I'm one of Michelangelo's sculptures come to life. But now that I'm getting a better look...
Tamami starts off as a huge waste of space. That's right, I just happened to see, but that wasn't your fault. That was an unfortunate accident. It's whoever was cold-hearted enough to leave a poor innocent kitten in the middle of the road's fault. Terrible, huh? I really hate people sometimes.
Exactly right! Huh? That was just a bit of bad luck. It's not like you meant to run it over. Nah, if you want my take on the matter, the real scoundrel here is the asswipe who left that poor kitten in a bag to die. Pretty rotten, if you ask me.
Tamami is also in Thus Spoke Rohan, and the last thing he does is ask him for his autograph. I didn't even see him do it. Crazy. Drip art? With coffee? And Tamami just so happens to say his best line when he's getting beaten up by a 5'2" 14-year-old. "The Tama in Tamami is for balls. I'm gonna man up for the good of my name."
Tamami! And the Tama stands for balls! So you're about to see how big mine are!
Toshizaku Hazamada's first line is to his stand after it makes Josuke stab his own eye with a pencil. Did you squash it? It made a nice sound. If he didn't sever any nerves, he'll be able to see again. If he's lucky, that is.
The sound of painful squishing. It's so sublime. But as long as you didn't sever the nerve, you might have a chance at seeing again. That is if luck decides to smile on you.
Toshizaku is another character who gets an extra line at the end of the anime. And just how are you going to make this up?
Say what? That stupid can you kick sprayed juice all over my brand new manga! So I want to know what you're gonna do to make this right!
Before becoming completely obsessed with Koichi, Yukako just has a little baby crush on him, and we meet her after she works up the courage to ask him on a date. "Koichi, me calling you here like this, well, did it bother you?"
So, Koichi, I hope meeting me here wasn't too much trouble.
And her last appearance is in the chapter DNA in Thus Spoke Rohan. She's one of the main characters of this episode where she's trying to get Rohan to help cure her niece of a mysterious condition. It's too long of a story to explain here, but her last line is, "You're surprised, Mr. Rohan. You should see your face. Your mind's totally blown. See you later." Tonio Trussardi is probably the greatest chef in the world. I mean, he's probably the only guy who can make Michelin star quality water. Josuke and Okuyasu walk into his restaurant wondering why there are only 2 tables, and he says, "It's because I run this place on my own. I work as the waiter as well. I can only handle 2 tables at once. Welcome. Here, please, sit down." It plays out a little bit differently in the anime.
Benvenuto. Two today? Here, please feel free to have a seat.
Tonio is the final character who goes on to be in Thus Spoke Rohan, and his episode is about him asking Rohan to help him poach abalone so that he can cure his girlfriend's tumor. Something moved. Rohan, on the right. More right. Light up the water on the right. A page later, he passes out when 3 abalone latch onto him. Rohan does rescue Tonio, but he doesn't have any more lines for the rest of the chapter. He also says his best line in the spinoff as well when Rohan asks Tonio who the woman he wants to get the abalone for is. "She's my lover, whom I left in my hometown of Amalfi. Her name is Vergina. She has a tumor the size of a grapefruit in her head. She's sick. She can no longer walk around. To my disgrace, Pearl Jam cannot make her healthy. So I must give her those black abalones to eat. It's the food of the gods. My hope is that it may help her recover, if even a little, if I can use it in a new dish. So I left my hometown to come here to Morio." It was dope to get more of Tonio's backstory, and even more cool to see that him risking his life for the abalone is actually worth it, because he cures his girlfriend by the end of the story. Before meeting an untimely demise at the hands of Kira, Aya owns a beauty salon where we first meet her when she's speaking to a troubled Yukako. I think it's better to be a cheerful pig than a depressed beauty in the prime of your youth. In the anime, it's a little bit more insulting though.
Her youth will be spent as a cheerful troll. Better that than a doleful beauty. Oh, the things we endure.
Aya is one of the few characters we're actually introduced to that is a direct victim of Kira. With her dying breath, she tries to tell Team Morio about Kira's new identity after he forces her to use her stand to swap his with Kosaku Kawajiri's. His new face is...
His face!
For Golden Wind, I decided to do things a little differently because this part ends with a flashback. It includes just about every character I'm covering for it. Instead of doing the first lines they say when they're introduced, we're gonna go with the first lines they say canonically, then the last words they say before or right after their deaths, since ghosts exist in JoJo's. Bruno Bucciolati was 7 years old when his parents decided to get a divorce. Instead of having a judge decide where he would go, his parents let him pick his favorite, and it kinda backfires. Knowing his mom would eventually be fine without him, Bruno decides,
Actually, I think I'll stay here with Papa.
13 years later, after joining the Mafia, finding a new family, and fighting desperately to save a troubled girl, Bruno dies a hero. Don't worry about it, Giorno.
I'm simply returning to the path I was meant to walk. The path to my origin. I'm going back. That's all.
Before joining Passione, Abbacchio is a cop. A dirty cop. But not necessarily a bad one. When we first meet him, we get a look at his thought process about accepting bribes from criminals when he supports a failing justice system. Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong to take money from these scumbags? The city solves all of its problems peacefully. Even if I arrest him, he'll just pay his bail and walk away. The only difference is whether the money goes to me or the courts and lawyers. This doesn't change the fact that I will continue to guard the city with my life. In the anime, there's added scenes to show why he becomes so disillusioned as a police officer. He says, after chasing some kids who throw rocks at his cop car. Because Abbacchio takes the bribe from this pimp, his partner eventually dies protecting him. And when Abbacchio is killed by King Crimson, his partner is the first person he sees in the afterlife. Initially, Abbacchio thinks the man is some random cop, but it doesn't take long for him to piece things together. That's right. You died on patrol because I took that bribe.
Wait, it's you. All along, it was you. I took that damn bribe and you paid the price.
Bucciolati's team is like a family, and the scene where they all reaffirm their loyalty to him is where a few of them say their best lines, including Abbacchio. What you're doing right now is essentially suicide. You'll never find a moment's rest no matter where you go. And I only swore fealty to the gang. I never swore it to you.
But even so, I've never had a place to really call home. A place where I really felt like I belonged, you know? The only time I felt at ease is... well, when I'm with you, Bucciolati.
How very friendly of him to say this. We're on to the sassy shooter of Team Bucciolati himself, Guido Mista. Originally, Mista has no lines in his flashback chapter, but the anime has him talking. The first thing he says is,
Hey, you ladies want to party tonight?
Sorry, Del, but we got other plans.
And the last conversation Mista has is with Trish, and in it, he tells her that he realizes he really does smell like ass. She says, no, actually, it's not that bad, and he responds,
Oh my gosh, do you really mean that?
Then they start laughing and giggling and just go on about their business. This could just be the American in me, but anytime a character's special ability is just gun, or anything related to guns, they're automatically cool in my book. What's funny about Mista is that a lot of his bullets find their way back to him. Golden Wind takes place over the course of like 9 days, and I think he shoots himself or is shot by his own gun over 30 times. 21 of these shots happen during his fight against Ghiaccio, and it's here that he delivers his best line. You asked me if that was all the resolve I had left, right? Well, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You're about to find out.
But you gotta do the same for me! Let me see just how determined you are to be shot into the proverbial hell frozen over!
The fact that he survives all of this is insane to me. Still a very, very sick scene though. Narancia had a terrible childhood caused by a neglectful father, friend who framed him, and the loss of his mother at an early age. In the anime, his first line is,
Here, Mama. Beside you.
But in the manga, we don't see this. She's only mentioned when her passing is described. Narancia goes on to inherit the same eye disease that kills her, and when he's ready to accept his impending death, he says, This is my fate. Soon this eye infection will kill me just like it killed my mom.
This is my destiny. This disease, it's gonna kill me. I'm gonna die just like Mama.
Narancia is unfortunately one of the 3 members of Team Bucciolati that are fated to die from the very beginning. But his death comes seemingly out of nowhere. One minute, everyone's watching Doppio, who they think is Diavolo lying injured and helpless from afar, and the next moment, they're looking at Narancia and Giorno's body impaled on these random metal bars in the Coliseum. It's like King Crimson slam dunked him up there. In the manga, before this time skip happens, Narancia says, "Got him," after Mista shoots him down. But in the anime, the last thing he says is a blatant death flag.
Trish! I'll protect you till my dying breath! That's a promise!
And for his best line, I think it's what he says as he's chasing down the rest of Team Bucciolati in the boat after they decide to betray Passione. His own life experience dealing with neglect and betrayal from the ones closest to him is what motivates Narancia to want to protect Trish. In a way that no one else on the team does, he feels her pain. The wound on her arm is a wound on me.
Please don't tell me to stay behind! Trish and I are the same! Her wounds are my wounds! Her pain is my pain!
Fugo is the only character in Team Bucciolati who doesn't have a backstory in the manga. David Productions, of course, ended up changing this and showing us how Fugo's anger issues lead him to joining the mob in a flashback. He starts college at 13 and draws the attention of a professor who also happens to be a child predator.
Fugo!
Oh, Professor.
And Fugo rightfully beats this man within an inch of his life. And even though he deals with anger issues, Fugo also happens to be one of the more level-headed members of Team Bucciolati. It's interesting how his struggle to manage his anger leads him to thinking purely logical most of the time. When everyone else makes up their mind to betray the gang, he's the only one thinking rationally in terms of what's best for himself, as opposed to emotionally.
I just can't be a part of this ridiculous game of betrayal. I won't be a martyr. I refuse.
Trish's first scene is hilarious. The very first thing she does is make Narancia look stupid. Are you Mr. Toilette? If your name is Toilette, then this must be your home. It says so on the sign. Then you would be free to tell us to come back later.
After all, one calls the shots in their own home. Of course. If this isn't actually your house, then you really have no business ordering me around.
What?
And her last bit of dialogue is in the same exchange as Mista's. After she tells him he doesn't actually smell that bad, she says, "Yes, but your fingers still look funny." Trish's character arc paves the way for the women of Part 6, especially Jolene. We see Trish go from being this high-maintenance, selfish teen to a compassionate, determined, competent member of the team. My favorite line of hers is, "I too can overcome the fate I inherited from you. I will not cower or flee."
If it gets in my way, then I'll climb. It's as simple as that.
For Part 6, we're going to go back to the very first piece of dialogue that the characters say in the story, and don't worry, we will be including the alternate universe here. Let's start with Ermes. Before she and Jolene become best buds, they're just 2 jailbirds waiting to be sent to a maximum security prison in Florida. With her first line, Ermes tells Jolene shut up because she's making too much noise whining about the prison guard seeing her do her thing the night before.
Hey you! What the hell you doing over there? Cut that shit out, it's annoying!
Ermes' last word is the battle cry she lets out during her final attack on Koichi, before she's killed along with everyone else. But she's reborn. As eldest, she's seen missing her bus, but is offered a ride from 2 kindish strangers right before a storm.
I'll ride along, but $10 is all you're getting from me. I'm gonna have you guys make a stop at Cape Canaveral too, okay?
And her best line comes during the fight against Sports Max when she's trying to avenge her sister. "Listen, Jolene, this is between me and him. Of course there's gonna be people who say revenge isn't gonna bring back my sister. They don't get it. Others will say forgiveness is what matters. But I sure as hell don't want to live my life forcing myself
to forget that my own blood relative was thrown into a sewer and just go on about my life. This is all I've been preparing for. Revenge is waiting, so I can design my own destiny and finally satisfy it."
Before becoming the MVP of Part 6, Emporio starts out as a random little boy somehow living in a prison. The day before Jotaro comes to visit Jolene, Emporio gives her an unsettling warning. "Tomorrow at noon, someone's going to come to see you, but you can't go see that person. You can't, no matter what.
You absolutely cannot go to the visiting room. If you go, you're not the only one who will be affected. Something even more unfortunate than death will occur."
And after Pucci's plan succeeds somewhat and the universe is reset, Emporio has a heartbreaking reunion with his friends who have no memory of him. He's the only person alive who remembers the Earth as it was. Reflecting on this unique feeling of relief and isolation, the distraught child says,
Since you wanted to know, my name's Emporio.
Since FF is a colony of plankton that possesses a bunch of people during one of their early appearances, it's a little bit difficult to pick out what exactly would be her first line. So to make things simpler, let's just go with the first line she says after she possesses the body of Atro, who she spends most of her time posing as anyway.
Hey, if I were to jump off from that window up there, you think I'd die? Hey, no need to get hostile, guys. It's me. It's me. Your new friend, FF. I'd like to be called that if you don't mind.
FF is the first member of the group to die fighting against Pucci, and also one of the only characters that we get a proper goodbye to. What makes her farewell so touching is that FF, being a bunch of plankton, is only playing at being a human. But none of that matters because at the end of the day, she actually does have a soul. I'm glad I was able to say my goodbyes to you, Jolene. It's alright, Jolene. It's alright. I'm glad you got your disc back.
I get to say goodbye. I couldn't have left you without doing that, Jolene. It's gonna be okay. And that's my promise to you. I'm glad you finally got the disc back.
I think this whole scene is where their best lines are, but my favorite is probably,
What you see right now is me. This is my intellect, my soul. And it's proof I was alive.
when Weather is introduced, he doesn't speak a lot because his twin brother stole his memories, but he does whisper, and technically he says something to Emporio that Emporio repeats. But the first thing we actually hear West Blue Marine say is, "Just pretend that you didn't notice." Surprised by the sound, someone just looked in. Now we have confirmation that you were indeed being traced, and also of the enemy's face.
Just act like you didn't notice. Pretend. Well, seems someone was surprised by the sound and looked inside of the room. I was able to confirm this. It would appear that there's somebody who knows you're making a move, and they've come here to check up on you. And now, I've seen the enemy's face.
Weather has to be one of the most unlucky characters in this manga. He's stolen away from his family as an infant, accidentally falls in love with his biological sister later in life, and has the detective agency his long-lost twin brother hired to follow him turn out to be ran by the KKK. When he finally gets his memories back and a chance to finally kill Pucci, he gets hit by a car and killed by Pucci instead. Even though it was an accident, Pucci is still the reason behind Weather's strife. At this point, he only lives so he can kill Pucci.
It's over! Die, Pucci!
Do you remember when Anasui used to be a woman? This is his very first appearance in the manga, but his first line doesn't come till later when FF comes to him and Emporio asking for help protecting Jolene. Fine, okay, I'll go protect her, Jolene Kujo.
Okay, I'll help you. If you really want, I'll protect Jolene Kujo.
Anasui only agrees because he is in love with Jolene and wants to win her over in hopes that she'll marry him. His love for Jolene is what motivates most of his actions up until his death. As Anasui, his last words are,
Do it now! Stop time!
Reborn as Anarchist, his final exchange is with his girlfriend Irene, and it's about picking up a familiar-looking hitchhiker and effectively reuniting the group of heroes who died trying to stop Pucci. I'm not picking up another one. 2 is enough.
I'm not picking up another straggler. 2 is more than enough.
Even though Anasui was sent to prison for murdering and chopping up his girlfriend, he's still a bit of a romantic. In my opinion, his best line is, I didn't expect to just immediately be able to marry Jolene. It's true, I'm a murderer, I don't deny it, and I also know that Jolene won't fall in love with me just like that.
But the sheer determination and pure soul which Jolene inherited from you, her father, is the light that shines upon the darkest part of my heart. And it's that heart that could collapse at any moment. She is exactly what I need. Just say yes. Please, sir. That word is all I need to hear. I need you to let me marry her when we make it out of this alive.
This is a level of yearning that I only expect real lovers to understand. Now that we're finished with the original JoJo universe, let's move on to Steel Ball Run. When we first meet the Joe Bro of Part 7, Gyro, he's trying to pay his entrance fee for the Steel Ball Run race. Out of nowhere, a random guy comes up from behind him trying to touch his balls. Gyro hits him with a spinnerooski, and the guy says, "Hey man, I just thought you had nice balls and wanted to get a closer look." "Is that so?" Gyro says, knowing the guy stole some of the money that he had placed on the counter. "If there's nothing wrong with the participation fee that I placed on the counter, I'll believe you. Count it up, clerk." Over the course of their journey, Johnny and Gyro become close like brothers, to the point where they're both willing to die for one another even though they have their own goals. The scene where the two of them say goodbye is heart-wrenching, because you don't want to believe one of them is actually dying. "Hey Johnny, over here, I'm moving over this way. If that's how it is, I'm okay with it. My real name, you promised, right? Don't tell anybody. See ya, take care." And you have to forgive me for picking such an unserious line for Gyro, but there's just no way I could pick anything other than this for his favorite. "Tell him to go eat shit, Johnny. Tell him yourself. Eat shit, asshole. Fall off your horse." One of the first shocks in Steel Ball Run is seeing Lucy with this old-ass man. Who could she be? His daughter, maybe? His niece? Nope, she is Steven Steele's wife, and funny enough, he is one of the very few people that don't try to exploit her in this story. With her first line, Lucy comforts Steven when he's stressing about the Steel Ball Run. "It's alright, Steven. You've been a promoter for 40 years. Believe in yourself. Do your best, my dear. There. Lucy is one of the few characters from Steel Ball Run that makes an appearance in Part 8 via flashbacks. As a member of the Speedwagon Foundation, she travels to Morio to investigate the existence of the Lokakaka and other phenomena in the area. After just narrowly being saved by Fumi Joestar and carried to safety, Lucy spots the main antagonist of Jojolion, Toru, planting the supernatural fruit. Steven Steele is so slept on. His introduction alongside his wife Lucy might make it seem like he's going to be the lowest of the low, but he's really the opposite. When we first meet him, his assistant is telling him about all of the crazy things that are going on with his race that hasn't even officially started yet. Of course, because of the sheer scope of the race, he's anxious, and due to the fact that someone on his payroll is coming to him with something other than solutions, he kinda blows up at the guy. What's a Komodo dragon doing on the beach anyway? Understand this. You take care of the trouble. That's your job. That's what I'm paying you for. You're supposed to take care of this. Don't bother me with it again. During the events of the race, Steven reveals himself to be a heroic man, stepping in to save Lucy and help Johnny and company stop the president from getting the Saint's corpse. What the president wanted, the right to being fortunate. Even if the law of the napkin is within the corpse, I think that after all, the only thing that can decide that is the will of God. Ultimately, the corpse doesn't belong to anyone, not to be in the possession of one nation or one person. This way is best. The corpse must be stored somewhere, but this way it will not belong to anyone. Dio has locked this shelter, but Dio's been annihilated. This way is fine. It no longer belongs to anyone. I was afraid that the one who owned it when it was locked would be gifted the napkin, but Dio wasn't qualified to be the owner, as it would seem. And for his best line, I would have to go with, "Listen, Lucy, you don't have to think about things like that, so never say something like that again. This is what I told your father, but I did this all for myself. The one who really saved you was your father and his determination as a parent to protect you. Don't forget that. I won't lay a finger on you. Not now, not ever. Don't worry. You should go to school, and one day you'll fall in love. And when you want to leave our house, you can do so anytime. But please spare me the trouble of your future boyfriend being a mafia member." I can't lie, it's a little bit hard to defend Steven when one of the twists of the story is that he actually isn't a pedophile, and is instead a man with honor trying to protect and raise this girl for saving him. Amazing from a literary standpoint, but you spend a lot of time reading this thinking he's a gigantic creep. I still can't completely agree with their dynamic all the way, but I'm just glad Steven at least tries to refuse credit for saving Lucy, and he makes it clear that she's free to leave him whenever she's ready. Yeah, he saved her life, but he doesn't expect anything in return, because she's 14 and he's a grown-ass man, and that's the way it should be. Anyway, moving on to Mountain Tim, and unfortunately, his first line is directed towards Lucy Steele also, but his intentions are not as pure. "Flowers, are you actually married? It's a shame." And his unfortunate love for Lucy is exactly what leads Mountain Tim straight to an early demise. "I never expected to die on a bed. I'm a cowboy. All I wanted was a place to come home to, just a place to return after my journeys." One thing I love about this series is how it handles character deaths, most of the time. In real life, death can be a very sudden occurrence that no one sees coming. It's tragic, brutal, dreams are left unrealized, goals are never met. Steel Ball Run has a lot of amazing dialogue in it, and Mountain Tim's best line is another romantic one. My only fear is losing you. Even if you could welcome me with a smile after I come back to town from my journeys. Just for that, I'm not afraid to fall into hell itself. It's a shame for him that he says this banger of a line just to immediately get rejected. Wake Up People's introduction really shakes things up for Johnny and Gyro. During his first appearance, he's tracking our main characters. He says, 35 degrees below, and then it would still be too thin. When deciding whether or not Johnny and Gyro would be running across a frozen lake. Wake Up People is another one of those characters who dies when you least expect it. And even though I just said I liked that, I'm not a big fan of it in this instance. I mean, seriously, his last line is truth. He didn't even have time to think about his sister or anything else. It's tragic. But I do love that we at least get a chance to see Wake Up People return to his true self, a compassionate person who seeks to defend the vulnerable after he betrays Valentine. Now there's nowhere left for me on this earth. There was never anywhere for me to go in the first place. I should be satisfied just to be able to protect a greater good. By my nature, that's all I've ever been able to do. Lucy Steele, for just a small young girl, one that I've never even met, I've made an enemy of this entire country. Well, I suppose it happens. Besides, I feel strangely serene. Hot Pants isn't exactly an ally by definition. She is a guilt-ridden nun sent to retrieve the saint's corpse as an agent of the Vatican. However, she does help Johnny and Gyro on more than one occasion, even though her motivations are mostly selfish. Her first line shows how straight to the point and no nonsense she is. Good day to you both. Let's skip the chit-chat and get straight to the point. I will now hang you both from this tree. You ate my cow, didn't you? It was a cow that I paid for in advance to be grazing on this course. The penalty of cow theft is to be hanged. Put those ropes around your necks. That's the law in this place. There's no need for a trial. Narratively speaking, Hot Pants' death comes even more suddenly than the last two, except hers includes a little bit more panic because she at least has time to react. What? My meat spray isn't working. The window frame has gone inside my body and it's moving. The spider and the other bugs in my arm. I need to get them out fast. No way. Something. And for Hot Pants' best line, I'm going with, I can't bear it anymore. The sin I committed, that sin feels like it's going to destroy me. The only thing that can soothe and cleanse my sin is that corpse. And the act of obtaining that corpse is for the sake of the people of this world's righteous hearts. For that end, I will defeat the president or whomever it may be. I will sacrifice my life. Hot Pants seeks redemption for the act of sacrificing her own little brother to save herself during a bear attack. And she dies in pursuit of the one thing that can bring her comfort. For Jojolion, I decided not to cover the Higashikata family because I want to do all of them alongside the other Joestars in one video. So for now, we're only going to be taking a look at a few characters, starting with Yasuo Hirose. She begins the story hiding from a real predator, Joshu Higashikata. Should I hide or shouldn't I? I'm not sure. No, holding out here, hidden is the right thing to do. But this is so awkward. Even though we only kissed once, won't you hurry up and go somewhere else? Yasuo's last line is dedicated to making the connection between the Joestar family and Josefumi Kujo. Also, this is just a bit of trivia, but the name Josefumi, when her father was a kid, he found a lone Geta sandal on the ground and picked it up apparently. And even after he grew up, he could never get the characters he saw carved into that Geta out of his head. And so he ended up giving his grandson that name, Josefumi. It's probably the name of the Geta's maker. The last few chapters have a part 5 style epilogue that takes us on a trip to the past before the main story begins. We're introduced to this universe's Joseph Joestar, who goes by Josefumi. Fumi's grandfather just happens to think this is a sick name and chooses to give his grandson the same name as well. Rai Mamazuku is very serious when it comes to this fruit game. He's the Walter and Jesse of exotic produce. His first line is, "Don't get the wrong idea, Josuke Higashikata. It seems you spoke to the enemy about me. You need to protect me. They've already come to me, and that driver was no good. I'll drive instead." Josuke does such a bad job at protecting Rai that he technically kills the man himself by mistake. Even though he has a hole the size of a bowling ball in his chest that definitely took out his lungs, and another hole in his head where the left side of his brain is supposed to be, Rai is able to figure out the true nature of Josuke's stand and tell him explicitly. As Gappy leaves the room to chase Wonder of You, Rai's ghost grabs a hold of his arm and tells him the exact same thing again. Josuke, listen. If the hospital director is attempting to leave the room right now, then there's a reason for that. He feels a sense of danger coming from you. It's because he understood what's going on that the hospital director is hiding himself. It's because of those invisible ones. All that's there is the spin. You haven't realized it yourself among your soap bubbles. Use them to defeat him. The lines are spinning. It's because they don't exist in this world that they can go beyond it. They go beyond his ability, I'm sure of it. During the Vitamin C arc, we get to see a whole bunch of lore about the two people who come together to form Josuke, Yoshikage and Fumi. While this isn't the first time that we see Fumi, this is the first time we see him say anything. He's raised by a neglectful mother who lets her son almost drown to death because she's looking for a boyfriend. As Fumi is being overtaken by the waves of the ocean, he cries for the one person in the world that he trusts. Mommy! He may have survived because Yoshikage and his mother save him, but a part of Fumi also died that day. Yoshikage and Fumi get themselves put on the bad side of Tamaki Damo's gang while trying to find the Lokakaka to save their mother and maternal figure, Holly. Back up on the yacht, you said that you roped me into this, but that's not true. That's not what happened. From the bottom of my heart, I wanted to serve some purpose for Holly. I've been imagining it forever now. I'm certain that is my image of happiness. If I can be even a little help to Holly, I thought that with this fruit, I'd definitely be able to make it a reality. For Holly, it was really important. I died a long time ago, drowning in the ocean on that summer day. Maybe I hit my head on a reef. I don't know, but I drowned. I didn't survive. From that day I went to the beach, I didn't exist anywhere at all. So the one to live shouldn't be me. It should be Holly's child. It should be you. I'll offer it, using the equivalent exchange. I'll gladly exchange my body. That's how it should be. That's the way of the image of happiness. And I got to live this long. This is a devastating scene. You can see on each page how deeply Josefumi regrets even thinking for a moment that Yoshikage would sell him out to Damo. Knowing that he was going to die already, Yoshikage came up with a plan that was meant to save only Fumi. At first, Fumi thought that Yoshikage was going to betray him, and now here he is practically begging for a chance to make it up to him. This is actually going to be everything for now because I didn't think it would be worth including the JoJo lands at the moment. And also, if you do have a favorite line from JoJo's, please don't forget to leave it in the comments so we can all discuss there. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.